I'm Nathanius, joined by Zombie Grub and Maynard. Now, we had a very interesting series before, but man, GuMiho, it's hard not to cheer for him. He's always been one of the most interesting players to follow in StarCraft 2.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of my favorite Terrans and always has been, the good old Tau Terran. He's like a mad scientist. Like a guy with all these beakers and all these builds, putting things together. It's
just throws it all together.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember back in Heart of the Swarm, right, on Deadwing, and the first time I was like, GuMiho's actually super sick, mech's awesome, that type of thing, and he brought it back. Legacy of the Void. This guy's been an innovator, and he's still pretty darn good. But I don't know. This actually is going to be a tough series for him.
Yeah. Have to agree, yeah.
We talked about this earlier when Tastosis were on the couch about how GuMiho, he's kind of like, he'll like overly finesse it with his strategy. It gets too complicated and sometimes doesn't just boil down enough to trying to execute. Do you feel that? Do you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned in his WCS signature video that he feels like he doesn't have the mechanics versus like a lot of the other high-level Terrans. That's why he gets creative, as it were. So, I mean, if he says it, then I agree. Yes.
Yeah,
he's a fun player to steal builds from, though. He's, I think he patented the first battlecruiser rush that we saw in Legacy of the Void.
Oh yeah. I mean, he tried it in his GSL finals, but it didn't really work out that well, did it?
It's a fun one to copy on ladder, though. But yeah, he goes into a very interesting match against a very strong European Zerg, Serral. I think one of the interesting things, perhaps, to take into account for this series is that the Terran field in the foreign scene is not quite as strong, and I'm wondering how that affects this matchup going into things.
I mean, a lot of the TVZs I've seen, or ZvTs rather, I've seen from Seral lately have been pretty solid. Like, he's a very good, he is your regular like Ling, Bane, Hydra defensive Zerg that will get into Ultra Tier 3 and play the late game if he can get there. But if he can get there,
if he can get there.
It's a big if.
I mean, he spent time in Korea, right?
Yeah, true.
The last like month, basically, and I think that's going to improve your versus Terran. It's going to improve anything at all.
That'll do it.
We get a chance to look at the group as well. Of course, Innovation taking the first series in Group D, knocking down True. Although that one was a little too close for comfort, I'd say, for Innovation. So GuMiho will play against Serral. The loser will face True very soon to see who gets eliminated second out of today's matches. But yeah, it's a tough one. These European Zergs, I think this year, they've been very solid. There haven't been a lot of, one-trick type ponies. You could say that Snoot would usually try to force the late game, but I feel like everybody else is very comfortable in every stage of the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that everyone here is here for a reason, because they can play all stages of the game, but there are certainly strengths and weaknesses. I would say that for Serral, late game is definitely his strength. GuMiho, his unpredictability and his weirdness is his strength. But that said, though, all the TVZs I've seen lately from GuMiho have actually been pretty standard. Like, not been too crazy. He still does that battle mech thing, like with the.
Of course, and I'm sure he'll throw it in here in a best of 3, but I was expecting more in a best of 5 from him. But yeah, he's been like a little more standard. It's also been a little less impressive. I think the height of his career GSL finals was he had worked on his mechanics. His macro and his micro kind of looked on par with Innovation that day. But it's kind of like, regressed back into what he was talking about, where I feel like, yeah, he's got awesome builds, but he's actually not as solid as I would say he was 4 or 5 months ago. But Serral's more solid. So
that's kind of an interesting thing to think about as we look at this head-to-head. Serral is a player that we haven't really heard much in the way of nerves when it comes to him. He just kind of shows up and he plays his A game, and that's what makes him very scary. But GuMiho, perhaps a player where maybe confidence is a huge factor in this. We need to know, how is he feeling? Like, it seems like, unlike Innovation, for GuMiho, it's how he's feeling is going to dictate everything about this. Is he feeling good enough that he can get things going? What does he do to get himself in that mindset?
I think just trying to get the game into a comfort zone for him is going to be his way to get through here. Seeing GuMiho on screen right now, looking as badass as ever, by the way. This kid's come here to slay some nerds, and I think that he's going to start with Serral. I still favor Serral. I think that GuMiho is going to try and pull a fast one here. Like, I doubt he'll be playing the standard builds he's been showing, but, I'm very, very keen. This is actually, like Jeff mentioned, there was a marquee match in the last group. This is my marquee match. I'm very, very keen for this one.
Yeah, it's always exciting to watch GuMiho play. To me, following his career, he oftentimes against the other Korean Terrans, he kind of ends up being like that sidekick type character, right? Where he's good, he does cool stuff every now and again, but he's not the hero of the story. He's not the person that you ever see lifting the trophy. The GSL victory was big for him, but a win here could set the tone for perhaps GuMiho, a new GuMiho coming to the top 16.
Yeah, I think that it would. GuMiho, I feel like, does have a lot to prove here. You know, the GSL win was not a fluke, but this guy's been playing for like 7 years, and if someone like, I don't want to say deserve, because it's a really tough word to use, but man, it would be great. You know, GSL final victory was one step, but the BlizzCon victory would just be like, okay, new best Terran.
1-1 GSL win isn't enough for him, you know, this year. I think that's the real story, is that GuMiho has an opportunity to show whether or not, you know, he belongs up here, because this is not a stage that he's usually playing on.
No, and same true for Seral as well. Like, they're both in a career best year at the moment going for both these players, and I think that you know, GuMiho has been on a little bit of a downward slope, I guess, since his GSL victory, whereas Seral's sort of been going on that upward slope, which is why this is really exciting.
Right, exactly. Like, are they evenly matched now, or is it really like one person's been getting much better and the other person's getting much worse, or what is actually going to happen? It's just, it's so unique. I also love that these guys kind of like, they are the races that represent their country, right? Like GuMiho's Terran, and he's got to like prove himself amongst the top tier Terrans, and Seral's Zerg in Europe, got to prove himself amongst the other great European Zergs.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it's one of those things that is always interesting to consider who they've been playing against all year. If you're a European Zerg player, I mean, who's your nightmare opponent when you run into these tournaments? It's guys like Seral, it's guys like Neeb. You know, Kellezer had a very good year, and perhaps that could be because there weren't a ton of Terrans that people were preparing for. So does that time in Korea give him what he needs? But that is GuMiho. And thinking about this match, it's just, there's so many different ways that this could go.
You're talking about his time in Korea. I mean, we keep bringing it up, but #1 on Korean ladder, man. Clearly his time in Korea went pretty well for Seral, and he would have had to go through a lot of Terrans to get there.
It's just trying to see, you know, how does GuMiho approach this matchup? Do you think he plays something straight up and tries to iron out those mechanics? Or
I actually think he needs to go full insane, like embrace insanity.
Full GuMiho.
Full GuMiho.
Full GuMiho. Full GuMiho. Battle cruisers, you know, medevac boost speed.
I'm down for that.
Playing regular is not the answer for GuMiho here, I think.
Okay, and of course on the other side of things we have Seral, who's just a really good Zerg who's been very scary to go up against. We've seen him up on the big stage. Of course, running into guys like Neeb is why he didn't take a big championship this year, but he has shown up. And he's when we talked at the WCS circuit events this year, when you saw the bracket, you're like, okay, guys, you don't want to run into Neeb, Seral, Nurchio, Alazer, and a couple of those guys are already on the verge of being eliminated. But Seral has shown that he has what it takes to get up to this far, and this is a very realistic matchup for him to win. Yeah,
I think he's actually the best European like chance we have, I guess, to like advance right now. There's Snoop being down and out. Alazer having lost his game today as well. I think Serral has a really good chance against GuMiho, and I love they keep showing, you know, we brought up the fact that he has not won some of these because he's met Neeb. I feel like in a different universe, Seral is the Neeb right now. You know what I mean? Like they're so alike in many different ways, but also just their progress. They've like, this guy's been playing. I remember casting him in a community cast like in 2012, right, when he was super young. And if Neeb wasn't here, it'd be like, oh, Seral's the next guy. Like everyone pays attention to Seral.
He's the hope of the tournament for the foreigners.
Dude, if he plays like I expect, if he plays like how all the other pro gamers have been telling me how good this kid is, even though he's never been a champion, he's been so close one time. I actually fully expect him to even top 4 this tournament. Like, absolutely he's going to get out of this group if he plays that well. He'll top 8, and then probably, depending on who he gets, get in the semis, I'd say, for sure.
A lot of players have had a ton of respect for Seral. It makes things interesting for him going into this group because GuMiho's going to play a very different game than we'll see out of someone like Innovation. But this match is ready. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to the commentary team. It's going to be GuMiho versus Seral.
All right, thanks, Couchers. It is time, Pig. I think that this is probably the best match of the day. One of the best matches overall on paper for the tournament. Yeah. What do you think?
It's going to be a pretty even one for our expectations anyway. Obviously, things can always go haywire in the heat of battle, but I mean, Seral coming in with those top ladder spots, a player who traditionally his weakness is against Terran, but he's been in Korea. He's been honing his skills. He's been working on that matchup specifically. And now GuMiho, a player who did win a GSL this year, he's a little bit of an oddball, but he's definitely got his work cut out for him, and I really do have a big trouble actually picking a favorite. I think GuMiho has been hiding his builds the last few weeks. I don't think he's putting it out there. I don't think Seral knows what's going to be coming, whereas Seral, he's going to be kind of more of the defensive guy.
Yeah, well, I definitely do agree with you on that one. Let's go ahead and introduce these players on our first map, Mech Depot. In the bottom left, our Finnish Zerg player, it is Seral. And in the top right, our Korean GSL champion, none other than GuMiho. Now,
Gumi bro.
Yeah, I mean, the based Gumi god himself going gas first here to open up. But, you know, there was one match for me, and it was before GuMiho had his sick run. What was it called? Like, Take's Penthouse Party?
Oh, yeah.
Where these two actually matched up, and GuMiho, for the first time that I had seen, and I think it was the first time he showed it publicly in an event, showed his like really new reformed style of mech, which involved Thor drops and mass Vikings to stop the Storm host play. And Serral did well against him. I mean, he, you know, for having not really seen this style before. So I look at that, I think about the evolution of the mech play, how it started to get really good, but Rogue has shown us how to shut that down at this point. And I think about the macro skills that Serral has, his great decision making, his quick speed. And I feel personally, Pig, like Serral is actually slightly favored here.
I can't argue too hard with that. I think it's still pretty close to 50-50, but with the skill we've been seeing from him against mech recently, he's just been shutting it down if he ever gets ahead. That's the big question for me, is not will Serral be able to compete in the late game if he's ahead or even, but what can GuMiho do to mess him up with the harassment? I feel like that's always been GuMiho's strength, is he has such a range of different harassment possibilities, whether it be Banshees, whether it be a Hellion drop, or any of about 20 other weird, crazy openings which he can throw out. So I'm very curious. Already, he's starting out with a low ground wall-off, so no doubt just wanting to be very safe against any sort of run-bys or early all-ins or anything like that.
Yeah, well, you know, Serral known for those kind of late-game macro plays a lot of the time. Do you think that that's what we're going to see from him? You know, just looking at the map pool overall with all these big maps, is that where he wants to go?
100%. You know, he, back at IEM Katowice, had some big matches, and pretty much every single time it was let's go to late game. He even ended up losing, pretty much trying to play late game Zerg versus Zerg against Dark, which didn't go too well for him. But it is his strength, is just playing very patiently, and if there's one guy who will just go back and forth with his army, looking for the perfect engagement, in the case of playing against Bio, one of the scariest Zergs with Burrowed Infestors. He will have them hidden everywhere, and I think just the threat of that alone is a reason to not want to play Bio against Serral in the late game.
Well, you know, certainly GuMiho is not known for his Bio play. He can go Bio. His Bio is good. I don't want to, like, build this incorrectly, but his Bio is not as good as, for instance, any of the Four Horsemen, right?
No,
he is not... That is not his style. This is a mech type of guy, and especially with these big maps, I would be completely surprised if GuMiho does not go mech on the larger maps in this pool.
Well, it looks like it is probably going to be a Hellion Banshee or perhaps Hellion Raven to open things up for GuMiho. Meanwhile, Serral is going for that Overlord speed. He's got drones on the way. Just a couple Zerglings for defense, so quite typical setups for both players. And interestingly, GuMiho with a funny little wall there. Has those Hellions wedged in that. Probably will close it up later on. But for now, that's pretty good at stopping Ling Run buys. They'll just naturally funnel in there and get roasted.
Well, right now, Serral doesn't have too many Zerglings at the moment. Of course, with that Overlord speed, should be able to scout pretty quickly. A little bit of scouting coming in from GuMiho. Sees that third base, but still both players just kind of passively playing this game.
Yep, Serral's Queen going to poke on up here. Take a little bit of a bruising. Overlord is going to scout at home, and Viking is going to clean up that speed. Overlord sees something building out of the starport, but doesn't see anything upgrading on the tech lab, and it is actually going to be a Liberator. So I wonder if we might see an armory go down behind this. Indeed, we do. Same build that Innovation was using just before against True.
All right, but will this end up working out against Serral? He's such a different player than True, right? Like, True is just going to sit around making Zerglings, and, you know, maybe he's going to stop it, maybe he's not. But with Serral, he's such a defensive Zerg. He's such the opposite, right? That I have a hard time believing that you're going to be able to kill him with a Hellbat timing.
It's going to be interesting to see how much transfuse energy Serral has saved up ready for this, and what his queen count is. 4 queens out already, more are on the way. The Baneling Nest isn't quite finished. If that Baneling Nest is ready, of course, and he can just make a ton of Banelings against this, that's the easiest way to make sure there's no surprises. At the moment, those Hellions are coming in. The armory is finished.
And he starts +1 while getting 2 more gases. I think it's safe to say he's chosen mech here.
Indeed, the Liberator going to just siege up right on top of that main mineral line. Oh, and Serral actually was pulling the Queen away for a moment. That's going to start to laser things up. At the same time, one Queen getting caught by those Hellbats does go down. Oh, he's only just getting the transfuse energy now, but already losing a Queen. That's a lot of damage coming out from GuMiho.
7 drones already going down, as well as a bunch of larvae and even an egg with a drone inside of it. So right now, this is a fantastic opening from GuMiho. Not as good defense as we've really been hyping up Serral for.
Yeah, not at all. And those Hellions getting out of there is a big thing here. Sometimes the Hellions go in, they kill a few workers. You say, was this worth it? Was it not? In this case, 100% it was. All of those Hellbats are still out there, putting on pressure, gaining map control, and it looks like even more units are going out to meet up with them. 3 factories, going up to 5 factories, and going to land the 3rd base behind it. GuMiho full steam ahead on the economic front.
Well, this is part of the beauty of keeping all those Hellions alive. He can land that 3rd base because he keeps on so much pressure. Now the Banelings coming in, some good splitting on these Hellbats, so having a hard time getting huge connections. Gets a few of them though, and is slowing them down. A lot of red Hellbats in here.
Oh, the Zergling's clumping up. Not going to be able to deal with that. More Banelings coming in. Should be able to answer these Hellbats finally. Some very nice connections. Serral will be able to clean that up. But it really is Serral's job right now to get a move on with that economy. He's only tied in workers with GuMiho. And while GuMiho's getting up the upgrades in all of his infrastructure, Serral's upgrades are a blank slate right now. His tech is just Zergling Baneling. He's only got a couple of Queens. Serral has got to make sure he defends everything very smoothly over the next few minutes to keep even with GuMiho.
Now, I like the fact that Serral is going ahead into Hydra Bane to open up here. If you try the Roach style, which is what a lot of Zergs were doing against mech for a long time, that is something that GuMiho's specific mech just obliterates. His Thor drops will just whittle you down, but with these Hydras, there is the chance to sometimes pick off those Thors in the medevac.
And that's an important point of contestation, is this 4th base. Any damage on that's good, because often the Thors are going to look for the cancel on that, and it's all about having enough Hydras to deal with it. Link counterattack actually getting a cute little surround, but not really going to achieve much. Actually only going to take out 1 Hellion. Good trade there for GuMiho. Meanwhile, Queens will defend the 4th base, and Hydralisks are starting to spill out. Of course, Serral wanting to secure himself with Lingbane Hydra, and only then will he move on up into the Swarm Host tech.
I gotta say, I love how GuMiho is playing this game. The fact that he already has +2 vehicle attacks, like a 1/3 of the way done, that is super fast, and he's really changed it up quite a bit from the double armory play he was showing during Season 2 of Codes this year. So it looks like he should have a lot more units a lot more quickly, and as long as he doesn't lose these Thors, I'm loving the position he's in.
Yeah, these Thors coming around the backside, looking for some damage. Hellion still zoning in the bottom. Those Blue Flame upgrade is now on the way. Liberator's still being added in every now and then, so GuMiho not going to let up on the aggression at all. But seeing that number of Hydras, those Thors, I mean, damn, they do so much damage. That hatchery already down to about 1/3 life. Could come back for a snipe on that a bit later. And GuMiho is in complete control of this game. Serral hasn't been able to slow him down at all.
No, not at all indeed. And keeping him back, GuMiho going to build his 4th command center on location right now. A lot of siege tanks have been built as well, continuing to pump out those Hellions. And just now, this infestation pit is going to be finishing up for Serral.
Double Baneling drop may be the answer here for Serral to get some damage back on the board. That hatchery on the 4th getting very low. Serral, you're going to need to leave some units there if you don't want to lose that. But, oh, the Raven's still being annoying here. That Raven's racking up the kills. Serral struggling to move past this Hydraling Bane stage. And this is not the composition you want in the long term. Normally what evens this composition out and makes it efficient is those Swarm Hosts. And Baneling drop's going to be coming in.
Yeah, I believe he has 2 Overlords set up for this right now. Yeah, there it is. The 2nd Overlord up here going towards that 3rd base. A turret in position. Serral turns it around. Oh my gosh. Perfect defense from GuMiho. He is on fire right now.
Yeah, that Viking plus the missile turret on the bottom side, sniping it down very quickly. This Baneling going to try and find a different angle. Ooh, nice movement. Not quite able to find those workers. There's not much mobile anti-air, but these SCVs going to keep trying to evade it.
Oh, I love this little tiny micro game that we're seeing right here. Trying to get those Banelings out. One hits the Hellions, but both those drops being shut down completely by GuMiho.
And there's no Swarm Hosts out just yet here for Serral. It's pure Hydraling Bane. This is a composition which, while it can deal with mech if you've got Vipers out, and that does seem to be what he's heading for with the Hive, it's going to be really tough. He keeps losing drones. The 5th base gets sniped by the Thors. GuMiho He's still got the Raven in the back. He's got the Liberator on the north side, keeps switching locations, and the double Thor drop in the middle. Serral's creep is getting pushed way back into his side of the map. GuMiho just picking away at him and getting so close to maxed out. He's pretty much there. He's already started his armor upgrades. He's going up to 8 factories.
Yeah.
Looks like no Sky Toss this game. Just mass tanks and Thors.
Well, I mean, his army is getting so magnificently large that I love this. Just adding those on, getting a couple more command centers, and now he can start his push with Swarm Hosts just having gotten out. These Swarm Hosts are not going to pay for themselves for a really long time.
Not at all, and man, these Hellbats do well versus Zerglings on their own. Baneling's being forced in there. More Hellions pushing in on the top side, and oh my lord, these siege tanks are already pushing right on top of that 4th base. Hellbats there in the natural do get pushed back, and GuMiho, he's going to play it safe. Doesn't want to siege up on that 4th just yet. I thought he'd take advantage to get the snipe on the base, but looks like he wants to be very careful with this army. It took him a long time to build up.
Well, even with his like 8 factories that he has right now, if he ends up losing all these siege tanks, he's going to be in a terrible spot. But he's continuing to push forward, albeit slowly. Vipers are out. There's a lot of Swarm Hosts here as well, but GuMiho's very good against this type of Zerg.
Serral is on the back foot. He needs to defend this attack cleanly, or at least not take a bad engagement. To hang on, that hatchery is so low. He either needs to go now or he needs to give it up. Looks like Serral does want to go, but the hatchery's already fallen. Viper's in the back with some huge blinding clouds, but a lot of the tanks weren't sieged up. GuMiho is going to pull back. He's going to try and engage this.
Oh my god, look at this play from GuMiho, keeping those tanks on siege and moving them out of the blinding clouds. Like, this was fantastic, and now with the cooldown of these Swarm Hosts gone, he can continue his push forward.
That's actually insane. Realizing he has such numbers right now, GuMiho can continue to push up. Now that the Vipers are out of energy, those tanks do siege some pretty decent Baneling connections. The Hydras are starting to get on top of these units. Serral looks like he might have the numbers to hold the top side, but these tanks reinforcing the bottom as well. Those Swarm Hosts, they should be almost cooled down now. They should be ready for another wave.
Well, a huge amount of Hellions being produced at the same time here from GuMiho. He's dealt some damage. He killed a base, but Serral does have his 5th still up and running, remaking this 4th. Looks like he's going to take a 6th. That is a lot of different numbers.
Oh yeah, Serral trying to take a lot of bases here. Another base on the bottom. He's got a Ling counterattack trying to move in. It's all about optimizing these Locust waves right now. You can't afford to waste them when you're pushed into a corner like Serral is right now. He's got to make each Locust wave count. He wants GuMiho to push in super deep. The moment he overextends, that's when Serral will spring those Locusts on him.
But the thing is, GuMiho's not really overextending. He's not even sieging up very often. He's being super careful with this. He's had complete control of this game from moment 1, from attack number 1.
Oh, and the Hellions here going to clean up the Zerglings on the north. At the same time, he's in range of another very weak hatchery. Serral looks like he can't save it. Loses all his Lings on the north and loses the hatchery in the middle at the same time. GuMiho only gives up a couple tanks for this. The Vipers come with some revenge. They want to kill a few more of these units.
The hot pickup on the siege tank as well.
And he's hitting 2 more bases at the same time.
Oh my gosh. GuMiho is just like putting on a clinic. This is the greatest mech player on Earth, in case anyone was wondering, and he has been for a very long time. And like, this is a reformed style of mech. It's very different from how he was playing during that season. He won the GSL, the single armory. He hasn't been sieging his tanks as much. Like, I just love these changes he's made. We have not seen one offensive launch of Locust yet, and since when was the last time, Pig, you saw a mech TVZ where the Locusts weren't doing damage?
Yeah, I think that would have been one of my ladder games that I lost, Dan. I don't think it was Serral playing when I usually see that situation. It's really hard. He's finally going to go over. He says we've got to try and get a planetary snipe, but the Locusts are going to split up. And with the Hellions there to support as well, no planetary fortresses will be falling. We'll damage them and kill a couple of SCVs. But at the same time, Serral loses the base in the north. And GuMiho just showing how to attack multiple bases at once. He's even got the high ground above the 5th. And he's sieging up there. So many units going down. Viper's going to come forward.
All right, those are good blinding clouds. So very nicely done. A nice abduct as well. Looks like he should be able to kill off all these siege tanks pretty efficiently. But as you said, you know, losing a base up there, this is very, very tough right now for Serral, who, although he's maxed out, doesn't have the same type of bank we see with GuMiho.
And it's all about the creep spread at this point. That's what enables Swarm Hosts to be powerful. It's what enables Lingbane Hydra to be powerful. If you can't get your creep out at least to the halfway point, you really are down. in a lot of trouble. And right now, Serral, he's trying to respread it from the bottom, but he's in so much damage. You can see he's only now replacing the tumors in the center of the map, and GuMiho is already pushing forward once again. Serral sending some units down the bottom of the map. Looks like he might try to get a counter going.
I like this little drop from GuMiho coming in. He's getting ready to actually go ahead and hit that 6th base location. In the meantime, flying in with the medevacs, they aren't going to get anything done whatsoever, but maybe this bottom attack will.
Ooh, lots of drones exposed on that base. They're all going to get roasted. 16 workers, which Serral can't really afford to be losing right now. He's going to throw the Locust. He says, I need to take this fight. Let's go for it. A ton of Thors in the open. Are the Vipers going to use Abducts or Blinding Cloud? Let's wait and see. It looks like it will be Abducts into the Hydras and Locusts. A lot of those Thors are going to go down, but they've taken down a few Vipers with them. Overall, a very good hold from Serral with these Hydras flanking from the backside.
Yeah, it is super impressive what we see there, and some SCVs dying in the meantime. So Serral's starting to pull something together, and in fact now has pulled past GuMiho in supply, who actually cannot remax right now.
This is an important bit of breathing room for Serral. He needs to respread the creep. He needs to get his drone count back up, most importantly, because this game is not going to end anytime soon. And there are only 55 workers there for a moment. His income was really sitting low. He's got to have a higher amount of workers than GuMiho until he gets a big bank going. Of course, GuMiho having those mules working for him. Starting to add on Neo Steel Frame. He already got high-sec auto-tracking, so that is building armor. And the upgrades to the planetary fortresses and turrets. But here we go. Another engagement in the center of the map. There's no Banelings to deal with the Hellbats. And the Blinding Clouds are good, though. The Hydra's just shifting out that damage. Thor's being pulled on in.
Great abducts right there. Those Locusts getting a lot of value. And look at this. Serral pulling back as the Locusts die. Beautifully executed. And this has been like... I'm amazed because GuMiho was playing out of his mind earlier on, but Serral has kept his cool in a way that I have never seen a Zerg combat GuMiho.
Patient defense, even in the midst of chaos here from Serral. Grabs a few Thors with the Vipers that do have energy. These Vikings come forward. They do manage to take out one Viper, but the Hydra's saying, that's enough. We can actually jump on top of you. You are on creep. You've come too deep into my territory. And Serral is going to crush that push, knocking GuMiho's supply way down. I think the Zerg player may have weathered the storm.
So I'm looking at this game, Pig, and I can't imagine GuMiho having a better start than he did without straight killing a Zerg player. But here we are, and Serral has now a dominating advantage. Like, it's not as if the game is about to end right this second. GuMiho has a bunch of bases. He's remaking his army. But Serral has fought back, become more cost-efficient throughout this game, and has a sick army.
You know, Serral's defense was very good. This is a hard map to make the aggression work. GuMiho was doing it pretty much about as well as I've ever seen a Terran player actually do it before, but in the end, Serral just kept on taking new bases, kept defending, kept hanging on, and here he has managed to hold on, throwing some Locusts. All of these planetaries actually on the south side of the map are all in the orange or deep yellow, and they could be very easily sniped by Locusts coming in a little bit later in the game. So GuMiho now is at that awkward moment where a Terran has to try to defend both sides of the map. Zerg suddenly is the one with a bit more map control, and as that creep spreads out, Serral just feels more and more comfortable.
Yeah, you know, the map rather has become a big, dark, scary place for GuMiho. He was keeping control, knowing where Serral's army was because he was kind of attacking into it. But now look at this, he doesn't have units here, and with this Hydra Bang coming in to 3 command centers, a lot of damage is going to be dealt.
That's such an investment up there. He needs those orbitals to drop mules. Locust coming in at the same time here on this base. Nice mass repair combined with the Hellbat drops to defend that planetary fortress. But GuMiho loses one of the orbitals up here. There is going to be a push on the south side from GuMiho, but if he commits to this, I think this army is going to be sitting dead in the water. The Swarm Host might be off cooldown, but there is a ton of Hydras, Zerglings, Banelings, and Vipers here.
Oh, these Vipers are going to make such a big difference. Actually abducting some Vikings in and pulling away. Never mind. Gonna back up for the time being, and as those Locusts come back online, he can hold on, but does sacrifice that base, and smartly so.
And that's one of the strongest things you can do as a Zerg player to abuse this map specifically, is because there's so many separate lanes and it's kind of hard to rotate between them. Oh, hold that thought. It's a barbecue. Oh my So many workers just went down here. That's actually huge damage for Gumi.
That is a gigantic amount of drones going out. Oh, one more shot there would have been crazy. 38 drones dying in a matter of seconds to those Blue Flame Aliens. Ooh. But, you know, here's the thing. I always think of, like, the Swarm Hosts as, like, mobile economy. They just gain so much value over time. And like every time they refresh, if you can launch those locusts quickly, get some extra damage done, it's okay to lose a few extra drones here and there.
I think the scary part is because of the hellbat count climbing, if Gumi can just crush one Locust Wave, Serral's in big trouble. It all comes down to this fight. The Hellbats, though, everything, if Terran gets blinding clouded, the Locusts and Hydra's coming forward. He's trying to siege up behind that, but another mass blinding cloud all over that army.
That blinding cloud is so crazy. The siege tank's not firing. Seral will have to end up backing up as the blinding cloud goes away and as the Locusts all fall. But GuMiho now can resume this attack.
Oh, man. I thought that would have been a great push from GuMiho right when Serral was so low on Banelings, had almost no minerals in the bank. He was just spending all of his money replacing his workers. But the Blinding Cloud Locust Hydra usage was just way too good. And once again, Serral, he's going to have to give up a base. That is a bit of damage from Gumi, continuing this aggressive mech style, but here comes another wave of the Locusts, Dan. Viper's not having a lot of energy, but the Hydras and Locusts coming in massive numbers.
Well, as those Locusts land, they are tanking a lot, dealing a lot of damage as well. Serral having to back up here once again. Still trying to produce, but GuMiho's aggression has been fantastic in the last couple minutes.
All of this aggression, the early damage as well, has piled up into the lack of creep spread right now. Serral still not having great opportunities to trap this army on the map or to chase it down. Anytime his Locusts clump up when they land, they just evaporate to the siege tank and Hellbat shots. And he can't really afford that. The supply has climbed back ahead here for GuMiho. There's only 14 Swarmos, 18 Hydras out, as well as those 4 Vipers. He needs more Banelings, he needs more time. Serral is going to go in for the engagement. A nice Blinding Cloud and a couple of the tanks, but the spread is good. The Hellbat standing strong in the front line, and I think GuMiho has the numbers. He holds onto this position, and he's in range of the hatchery.
Oh man, both these bases might end up going down very quickly. Those Vipers trying to get the energy they need for some more spells. But with a huge amount of his supply actually tied up in these Swarmos, he has to wait for that cooldown to hold this.
Serral up against the wall right now, loses one hatchery. The other hatchery is exposed. He's trying to pick away these siege tanks, but he's only got one hatchery rebuilding in the south of the map. Every drone falls.
Serral's economy just in shambles at this point. What a crazy back and forth game. First GuMiho winning, then Serral fighting back strongly, getting into a good position. And here is GuMiho once again barbecuing the drones, killing base after base, and somehow holding on against the best Viper play we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, the Viper usage has been so efficient. But even though there was that one engagement where GuMiho fell down in supply, he kept harassing, kept counterattacking, found the drone barbecue at the crucial moment, and he's just barely been able to overwhelm. You know, this is a somewhat sensitive composition. These Locusts, you see them land on the Hellbats. Even though there's Blinding Cloud, all of the Locusts pretty much evaporate instantly. You need the speed Banelings to roll in, and that is why Zerg needs to maintain a big economy. GuMiho didn't really fight this front on. He just killed the economy over and over, and actually manages to close out that game number 1.
Yeah, what a game right there. What do you think was the moment where, when after Serral took the lead, GuMiho took it right back? Was it that huge drone barbecue?
I think so. I do think that was really crucial, because I think there's this thing which often you don't notice. It's the Ling Bane, kind of they run in front of the army, they tank a lot of siege tank shots, and most importantly, clear up the Hellbats. I think as soon as you take that out of the equation, Locust Hydra on its own, I mean, Serral actually took a few amazing fights with it, but then 1 or 2 of the fights weren't quite as perfect. His whole army evaporated, only killing a few tanks, and it was like, ooh, I think you're missing a piece of the puzzle. You need the Baneling count in there.
Well, when you're having to re-drone that many times, how many drones did we even lose that game? I think it was well over 100 for Serral. Sure. So GuMiho just playing a magnificent game, but let's not forget, he got off to an awesome, awesome start against Serral, something I don't think we'll see in every game in this series.
I don't think so. You know, it was Mech Depot. It's a very sort of defensive macro-style map, but GuMiho used the fact that those bases are spread out along the edge of the map. The way that Liberator came in around the top side, the Raven in the back dropping down auto turrets, Hellions, of course, poking around, and then the Thor drop, denying a lot of creep tumors. Serral not able to get really any forward position on that map, and I wonder if he is just going to continue to play the same style. If I read Serral as a player, I say he's just going to go into the next map and say, you know what, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm just going to take less damage to all of your moves.
Oh, absolutely. You know, especially in that early game, that Liberator in the main dealing huge amounts of damage to him. So I think Serral can pull this together and give us a better game that's going to be hard for GuMiho to stop.
It's going to be course, everything on the line here in this next map number 2. Down here in the bottom right-hand side of Ascension to Aya, it is Serral.
And of course, the Korean phenom, the GSL champion, it is GuMiho.
Impressive play from GuMiho in that game number 1. Thought it was going to slip away for a while, but he hung on. That harassment always really has been his strength, even in the early days, you know, post-random player GuMiho, but back in the early days of maybe 2012, it was always harassment. It was always the chaotic games coming in from multiple angles. That was where he really showed his skills. And I think his style of mech has really relied on that. Even when we think of him going battle cruisers, he would often win the games by hitting many mineral lines with battle cruisers, teleporting them home, keeping up that harassment even when the Zerg swaps to a less mobile composition in the late game.
And I think you're actually thinking specifically of some games on this map that we've seen him play exactly like that. So excited to see where he'll be going with this. Very quick command center coming up here for GuMiho. Looks like a CC first build. But a gas pool hatch actually here for Seral. Kind of interesting.
Yeah, quite a safe opening out of Serral. Does have some options of aggression. Not ones we'd see someone like Serral do very often. If it was true, I'd be talking about the option of a Ling Flood or something. Of course, things like that do exist, as well as fast Ravager rushes. But this is one of the longer rush distance maps in the pool, so I wouldn't be surprised if Serral just tries to sneak 2 Lings around the edge of the map.
Sure.
And plays a pretty normal fast third play.
So, Ascension Ire, let's talk about this for TVZ just for a moment. Pig, what do you think about mech play on here versus bio play on here?
It's really interesting. I think this is definitely one of the mech, stronger mech maps. That high ground in the middle, a very nice area if you can control these watchtowers. You get real kind of area where it's very awkward for the Zerg. You push back creep in many directions, and then your harassment opens up. Whether it be speed banshees, something we've seen a lot of on this map, Hellion run-bys. That becomes really powerful, whereas I feel like Bio suffers from the long push distance. It just feels hard to get in the Zerg's face before they're ready. Yeah,
I totally do get what you're saying, and that middle area, I think, is the really important part of this map. If you get siege tanks up there, you choke up the Zerg insanely. They have to go so far around with any sort of Lingbane Hydra that it's almost like they can't do anything. You push down the ramp in a matter of seconds, they can't defend anything but the 4 bases on high ground. So I kind of like it in some ways for Terran if they can secure that area.
Yeah, I think GuMiho, one of the players who's probably inspired the most confidence with that same sort of style. The siege tanks just spread all over that middle area. Going to be interesting if we do get to that point. Of course, Serral here. One of these Zergs, it's funny, these next level Zerg players, Dark, Rogue, Laser, Serral, all of these really top guys here at WCS Global Playoffs, they love their Overlord speed. They want to know exactly what's going on, because they know that Zerg is a very reactive race. They want to be able to see what their opponent's committing to and try and react to that.
Well, I like that type of Zerg as well. I mean, there's something to be said about the aggressive styles that we sometimes see out of someone like True, right? That can definitely catch you off guard. But these big macro Zergs, I think, are the ones that people are most afraid of up at the pro level. If you don't do that early damage, like, for instance, if GuMiho's initial attack with the Hellbats and the Liberator hadn't done as well, Serral's going to crush it, right? And it's a scary thing to play against a Zerg like this.
Yeah, I mean, you do that much damage, you've still got to work that hard for the win. It's scary, but GuMiho is going to change things up this time. And Serral is going to scout that upgrade on the starport. So is going to know there is a chance of Banshees, and we're actually going to see double armory coming out. So this is looking like that older style of mech that you were talking about.
Yeah, it definitely does look that way right now. We'll see if he commits to these Banshees. I would imagine he will, since he is going into mech. No, he actually cancels the cloak, but we'll still go ahead and grab a Banshee for some harassment. But yeah, this is kind of the older style, and I think that with this type of style, that Serral should do a little bit better. Like, the heavy pressure from GuMiho, how many hatcheries did he actually end up killing that game? It was quite a few.
Oh man, there was so many bases he sacked. But it's interesting with such a fast third command center, and really, I mean, how many Hellions have we got on the map right now? Not very many, right? 3? He hasn't even been building Hellions half the time. GuMiho, I feel like he's saying, you know what? I've got your number. You're a very defensive player. Last game I played very aggressive. You're probably going to be very careful about that. You're going to be very worried. We see Baneling's already morphing defensively, even though GuMiho is basically just playing the greediest build he can. 3 command centers. He's like, yeah, we'll make a Banshee kind of for safety and to try to get a reaction. But meanwhile, GuMiho is like, I'm not really going to push till 1-1 or 2-2's finished.
Yeah, I really like that, actually. And the fact that Seral is kind of preparing for the same type of push he hit last game shows that maybe even with that Overlord speed, he's not fully aware of what GuMiho's motives are in this early game.
He's going to be getting some nice creep spread, of course. That's always the big advantage of a Zerg player who is left alone. They get to spread creep everywhere. And Serral, of course, always being one of these economic Zergs that toes the line agreed. Even, you know, he's just feeling comfortable pushing up in that. He did see the 3rd command center earlier, of course. His Overseer continuing to scout and see what the follow-up is. And looks like Hydra, Ling Bane going to be the answer once again. And last game, Serral went for the Swarm Host quite late. I wonder if he's going to do that same sort of build-up. You know, go for the Vipers and then add the Swarm Hosts.
You know, I think he might get the Swarm Host a little bit earlier this game just because the heavy pressure isn't going to be there. He lost something like 7 drones in the early game, and I think that kind of made him alter his play. Here, he's super ready. I'm not foreseeing him losing more than a couple drones, so he's going to have that little bit of extra economy to do with what he wants.
Hellions going to be poking in down here. Serral well prepared with Queens, Zerglings, and Banelings. And already with Hydra production on the way as the double Thor drop is kind of going to be popping soon. So by the time that gets across the map, there's going to be more than enough Hydras to deal with that. And I feel like, you know, GuMiho, his supply's great, his production's great. I can't help but feel that Serral's kept up with him, though.
Oh, absolutely. Without taking this damage. That's the important part. You know, early game in a TVZ, unless it's a super aggressive Zerg like True, you're just going to be looking how many drones are dying, right? Yeah. Is he losing a bunch of queens? Is he having to run his drones all over the map, losing mining time? And none of that has been the case here for Serral. So he's getting into the part of the game where he's most comfortable.
Oh, and a fast 4th command center here for GuMiho. Preparing to play the late game. I feel like this is really GuMiho embracing this map. And I would not be surprised to see an air transition a bit later on in this map. Baneling drops are going to be starting up for Serral. Overseer. This is what I love about Serral's play. He just keeps checking what's going on. You never surprise this kid with a sneaky transition. He will always see it.
Oh, the Hydra's almost catching a medevac there, but GuMiho not known for losing his Thor harassment. Very much on top of that, being the innovator of it. Here, a Baneling drop coming into the 3rd. And, oh my god, a lot.
Nice.
10 SCVs falling in a matter of seconds. Good harassment here from Serral.
He sees everything that's going on. Just tanks, Hellions, Vikings, a couple Liberators coming out. Thors are going to be forced home. Of course, that medevac deep in the red. Serral's creep getting closer and closer to the middle of the map. GuMiho did a good job of kind of trying to poke the bottom with the Hellions while the Thors were out there, but hasn't really slowed Serral down too much. And Serral now finally saying, hey, you're not really putting the pressure on me. It's time for me to start looking at what you're doing. Maybe putting some pressure back on you. We've got the Hive on the way. The Swarm Host production starting up. Serral getting on into that mid game.
Yeah, look at this creep spread too. He hasn't been able to really deny much of it at all, losing that first Banshee immediately. He hasn't been able to do any actual Thor harassment, taking a ton of damage from the Hydras right away on that medevac. This is looking good for Serral at the moment, but like, not in such a way that we say, oh, Serral's just going to win this game. GuMiho has a big army, he has a big economy, he's been very greedy, his upgrades are fantastic. But Serral is going to show us the full power of a macro Zerg against mech coming up.
Yeah, if GuMiho can take it after giving Serral this sort of smooth, clean startup, then it's going to be a really big confidence booster for the Terran player. Nice Liberator harassment here. Something which he just always consistently does throughout the game. One of the most annoying things for a Zerg player to deal with. These Hellions as well, finding a couple of Queens out in the open. That's going to, of course, limit his ability to keep respreading this creep. He's still using scans to clean this up. And GuMiho getting up to 170 supply behind this. He's got +3 weapons on the way. Blue Flame coming in. The army's getting pretty nice.
Ooh, but now the Swarm Hosts are out, and it looks like he's up at about maybe 12 with those Swarm Hosts. Yeah, there they are. Going to go ahead, drop a bunch of Locusts, but see, this is part of GuMiho's brilliance. This is a move invented by GuMiho, dropping out those Thors, making the Locusts land or die, and thus the first launch of Locusts doesn't do anything.
Yeah, I think Serral really needs to take these rocks down here, give himself a position so his Hydras can escort the Swarm Hosts up there.
Yes.
And also so his Swarm Hosts, after they throw Locusts from that position, they can then rotate around down to this south side of the map. Of course, threatening multiple locations. That's where GuMiho is going to be exposed.
Yeah, I love what you're saying. And that, for instance, what you just said with bringing the Hydras up, opening the map, rotating where you're hitting, that is exactly how Rogue, the best late game Zerg in the world, deals with these type of mech plays. So would love to see if Serral has kind of taken some notes from him.
Well, he's going to be using this Hydraling Bane here on the backside. Of course, the lack of Banelings, what partly caused his demise in game number 1. But the creep spread looking a hell of a lot better this time around. He's got his carapace upgrades adding in as well. And it looks like GuMiho is saying it's time to take the middle of the map. I don't think Serral wants to let this happen. Oh man, most of those Banelings just get roasted before they even connect with the Hellions.
Yeah, a little bit rough there. Morphing some here, but GuMiho jumping on top of it before they can even come up. A small group of Locusts launch out, but he's going to need a lot to hold this off. This is a very fast and aggressive push from GuMiho.
That's the difference with Rogue. When Rogue plays this, you'll see him make an insane number of Banelings, sometimes 30, 40, 50 Banelings. He recognizes their importance in making this combination work. Now we see Serral respecting that Hellion count, adding in a ton of Banelings. Are they going to be able to connect? The tanks aren't really sieged, but now they are spreading. They're sieging. The Hellbats coming forward. Serral takes out a ton of Banelings on the right flank. Locusts and Hydras launching in. 1 or 2 Blinding Clouds do go down, but there's still a very good tank spread. Is it going to be enough?
A very messy engagement here from Serral. Everything seemingly going wrong. His Vipers not getting their spells off for the most part. A lot of them going down. The Swarm Host taking a beating. And I mean, this is pretty tough. GuMiho has erased a base and is continuing the push.
Yeah, he's trying to throw more Locusts, but they're going in on their own. This doesn't really achieve that much. Really get the tank. One siege tank does fall. I mean, in the long term, that's nice, but right now, GuMiho is knocking on the door, and if he can take out another base, he is going to start to pull way ahead in that economy.
Oh man, he is making it very tough. A great spread on these siege tanks. Still, Serral trying to add in as many Hydras as he can. He has some Lings and Banes. He gets another Locust fleet, but look, these Vikings really putting a dent in them before they can land.
Oh, the Hydra Baneling on the top left flank actually got blasted by those tanks before it could even connect properly. Those Hydras starting to get whittled down as they come in. Hellbats are loose in the mineral line now, and this is where everything falls apart. GuMiho taking a surprisingly decisive 2-0 victory.